This episode of Warp 5 is brought to you by Audible.com, offering more than 180,000 titles for smartphone, tablet, and desktop. To get a free audiobook of your choice and help Trek FM at the same time, visit audibletrial.com/trekfm. And also by Enterprise in Space, an international program of the non-profit National Space Society. Find out how you can help science and education and become a virtual crew member aboard the NSS Enterprise Orbiter by visiting enterpriseinspace.org. And if you want to join in on the conversation and share your thoughts on this episode or any other, please join the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type Babel, that's B-A-B-E-L, into the Facebook search field. We look forward to seeing you there.
This is Manny Cotto, executive producer of Star Trek Enterprise. You're listening to Warp 5 on Trek FM.
How we doing, Trip? Ready when you are. Prepare for warp.
Course laid in, sir. Request permission to get underway. Let's go.
Welcome, Boomers, to another episode of Warp 5, Trek FM's dedicated Star Trek Enterprise podcast. My name is Patrick Devlin, and today I'll be your host. I am joined with my friend Brandon-Shea Mutala. Brandon, how are you?
My mind's going crazy. I remember things that I don't remember that I remember, and I didn't really remember them, but I remember.
Oh, it's one of those days.
It was one of those days. Too much coffee.
It's a rough day. Oh, we got a guy at work like that. You just stay away from him.
How are you, Patrick?
I'm good. You're
getting ready for vacation.
Yeah, technically I'm already on vacation. Today was my first day officially on vacation, but I'll be going away for 2 weeks, Wednesday-ish, and it should be fun, going away with the family.
So now the listeners have put up with no me for a while, and now that I'm back, you're leaving.
Yeah, so they're really happy.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Brandy's
anyway.
gone too, because she's sick. She's in sick bay with Flux.
Brandy's, she's visiting Phlox today, so she won't be recording with us. But she'll be back next week when I'm gone, and then it'll be you two for a couple weeks, and then I'll be back.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and we have a special guest interview next week with Scott Bakula.
Of course you do.
No,
Go figure.
Just kidding.
I'd have to just bring my computer with me. So, anyway, the Wi-Fi at Disney is terrible. I believe we had some comments in the Babel we'd like to go over.
Sure, yeah. Do we? I don't have them in front of me, so you're going to have to read them. I'm not prepared.
We do. So, go figure. So, in the episode titled Number One Helmsman of a One-Ship Fleet, which is Warp 5 number... It's not listed here for me. 158, sorry. We had a comment from Chris Trabuzio who said, I thought Brandy Jacola said match game when she was saying mash game, but he also said, thank you for sharing your story, Patrick Devlin. I had a similar experience with my grandma, mom's mom. I came home from high school happy about something, specifically I can't recall, and my parents told me about her death after being hospitalized. Overall, great discussion. So if you listen to the last episode, I gave the story because of Travis's father passing and his reaction, and that was similar to mine. So not the last episode, 2 episodes ago, sorry. And Chris was just saying, he had a similar scenario. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that had similar experiences, and I wish it didn't have to happen to anybody, but, unfortunately those things happen from time to time.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It was a good episode. I finally had a chance to listen to it because as it's dropped as of us recording this, obviously because we have comments to read about it, but right. Which prompted us and it gave me a little bit more understanding for the commentary, which as we're recording hasn't been released, but
right, but will when they hear this.
The last week's commentary on the episode. So
yeah, it does. It makes a little bit more sense after knowing what happens in the previous episode, I guess, which. It's good because listeners hopefully are listening each week. So. Mm-hmm. But you didn't hear my comments before the commentary.
That's correct, yeah.
So that's a little weird for you, but okay.
Timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly.
Yeah, it's been all over the place lately. We also have Matthew Bell said, regarding Travis's rank, I seem to recall that Malcolm was originally going to be a lieutenant commander. The situation with Travis being too young only came about when Reed was bussed back down to lieutenant. I forgot the reason, maybe to give more authority to Trip. Randy's response to that was, I still feel that it's ageism, that in the future it doesn't matter how old or young you are. This idea that Starfleet Academy is only for young students is rather short-sighted in my opinion. And Matthew responded, Brandy, absolutely, it is ageism on behalf of the producers. In the 24th century, we did see officers of different ages in background scenes at least. Yes, I agree with everything that was said, but also I understand why the producers did what they did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure of any of the behind-the-scenes and what was involved with choosing ranks for characters and stuff, but I don't think necessarily... I think they just have to have a couple of ensigns on the show, so it seemed... I don't know, because Wesley Crusher was an ensign, right? Like, I know he was acting ensign at the beginning, but he was ensign on the con, and I think there was always an ensign at the con, right?
I believe so, yeah. And I mean, I know... I did read it somewhere that they were going to make him lieutenant, but then decided against it because they didn't want Reed to look like he hadn't moved through Starfleet properly.
Mm-hmm.
So I get the ageism part, but I think it's more of they didn't want Reed to look dumb than that Travis looked too young.
Yeah, promotions are always weird in Star Trek. I mean, you know, Worf got his lieutenant commander promotion after, you know, he got a couple of promotions, right? Because he started as Lieutenant JG. Right, and so did LaForge, and they both ended up as lieutenant commanders by the end of the run of the show. You know, Worf got his promotion in Generations. Right. But, I mean, then you end up with characters like, you know, Hoshi and Mayweather and you know, Ensign Kim, right, that just don't advance in rank at all, you know, and, you know, lots of other characters that don't advance in rank at all. You know, like Lieutenant Commander Data, wasn't he Lieutenant Commander the whole time?
I believe so, yeah. Never changed.
You know.
But then you see, like, in, I mean, I know it's not canon, but, like, in the video games, the Star Trek Online, he becomes, like, a captain and farther, I think. But,
mm-hmm.
You know, but that's not show, and the show has kind of its own kind of weird rules for all that.
Well, you were kind of in the military, weren't you?
Yes.
Like, you just ate pizza and stuff while
you're
you're in the military, though, right?
Yeah. What? Clean floors.
Yeah, like you know, so, you know, they don't advance. No, I'm just kidding. But, so how does rank work? Is there time served? Like, is it possible that time served only could get you an advancement in rank?
Yeah, it could, but it depends on how far you want to go. Because usually your lieutenants, you know, your commissioned officers went to school for it,
mm-hmm.
which would be Starfleet, right? And the Navy is different than the Army, where the Navy's commissioned officers do start as ensigns and move up. Yeah. The Army, you start your non-commissioned officers are like your sergeants and stuff, but then your commissioned officers are lieutenants and higher, lieutenant second grade, and so on. But typically they're straight out of we call it ROTC, but Recruitment Officer Training Corps, which is college.
Yeah, so I mean, like, I've always assumed that, yes, you could advance based on time alone, but the primary way to advance is by recognition of duties. And if you're good at your job, you stand out more, you accomplish more successful missions or whatever, you show that initiative, then you'll advance quicker.
Yeah, and look, advancement's easier in wartime.
Mm-hmm.
There's more for you to actually do, you know, or if you're in combat zones and stuff like that. And also, I don't personally know anyone who was lieutenant without ROTC, but that's not to say that it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You know, I have a small sample size still, so I just know I met my fraternity. I was in a fraternity in college. We all met through ROTC, so that worked that way. And some of us went to boot camp or basic training if you're in the Army. Even though the common term is boot camp, that's actually only the Marines. A lot of us went to basic training because we wanted to be able to pick our job a little bit more freedom than you have with just going to ROTC. Mm-hmm. But either way, the end result is if you graduated and you went and did your military career on the contract you had, you started off as a lieutenant.
That sounds like, you know, like you got an Italian word or something like that for, like, gusto or whatever. You got some razzi.
Yeah,
you know, like you'd hear on Sopranos. You got some Stugats, right?
Yes, yeah. Well, it's ROTC, so, I mean, it does sound like a foreign language, though.
Yes, anywho.
but that's not what we're not talking about advancement in ROTC today.
No, but I do have a question that's completely off topic since you're a Disney fan.
Okay, let's do that first.
So with Disney buying Fox, Is the Xenomorph Queen a Disney princess?
Well, no, she'd be a Disney queen, right?
Yeah. Well, so she's a Disney queen then?
Yeah.
Who's in? Ellen Ripley is a Disney princess then?
Yeah, I guess. I don't make the rules.
We need that shirt. Ellen Ripley is a Disney princess.
I'll make it. Don't worry. But no, so at the Halloween party that I go to on Friday, she should be there with Cruella and
You're going to a Halloween party in August?
It's the second Halloween party for Magic Kingdom.
In August?
It's a special ticketed event. Yeah, it starts in August.
That's bizarre.
Well, they only sell 20,000 a night.
A night? Oh.
A night. And they do it twice a week.
So it's small.
For Disney standard, yeah.
I don't know. I've never been.
Let's put it this way. There's no waits on the rides at 20,000 people.
Let's continue.
So, very off the rails very quickly. So what we are going to talk about today, though, is the episode The Seventh. Mm-hmm. And we're going to do a deep dive on that episode in particular. Brandon picked because he doesn't like it.
Well, it's not that I don't like the episode. It's just, it's one of those episodes that I never remember. You know, I'm like, what is that episode about? You know, you hear the title of it, and I always think that it's actually Marauders, because Marauders is loosely based on the Magnificent Seven. Right?
Yeah.
So whenever I hear The Seventh, I always think about the episode Marauders. And so when I'm like, wait a minute, no, Marauders is Marauders. Like, what is The Seventh? And I'm like, I don't know. And then I know it's to Paul related. So then I always think it's that one with that old Vulcan woman. And then I'm like,
it's not that one either.
No, it's not that one either. And then I'm like, what the hell episode is this? And I could just never remember. So I watched it again the other night, and I don't even remember, so I don't know how much I'm going to be able to do. No, I'm just kidding. I'll be able to handle my own.
But it is it is interesting that the whole point of this being called The Seventh doesn't, like, really pop up till, like, the last 6 minutes of the episode.
The last 7 minutes of the episode.
Yes.
No, I'm kidding. I don't know. Like, it's just one of those episodes that I can never remember on a rewatch, and I'm like, what episode is that? So that's kind of why I wanted to talk about it, to see if I could find something memorable that I can grasp onto.
All right, well, let's see if I can do that for you. I don't know if that's possible, but there's not much in the episode.
So take it away. You're the man. You're the boss.
Okay. So when you first turn this episode on, you end up seeing that T'Pol gets this special mission, and that Admiral Forrest calls over to Archer and tells him he has to go to this planet. I can't remember the name of the planet. I'm terrible with this kind of stuff.
Bob 7.
Yes, so he has to go to Bob 7 and wait. And they won't tell them why. And you can see Archer's visibly annoyed.
Yes.
By the fact that he has to do this, which I completely agree, because
I'm visibly annoyed when I watch this. I don't know what she's trying to do with this being evasive, but it just doesn't work for me.
No, it doesn't. Well, I don't know.
Like, right off the bat, I think this is why, is because they're trying to be provocative in this episode, and I'm just like, it's just not working. Like this, oh, so where are we going, and what are we doing? Oh, you're going to get a call from Admiral Forrest. Oh, okay, what's he going to tell me about? I need a ship to do this. Okay, but what is going to happen? I need this mission because I need this material. Okay, but what are you trying to be doing? I need a pilot. Like, I don't know, like, it just, she doesn't want to talk about it, but then she just goes down and tells him everything anyways.
And as we'll get into, eventually asks him to come.
And asks him to join her, and it's like, what?
No, so all of that I don't like, right? Everything we just said there, I'm not very fond of. When they're all standing around and, like, Trip's like, oh, I'll just polish all the handles. Like, that's how I felt the same way Trip did at that moment. Like, this is ridiculous, and I'm just going to give a ridiculous answer.
Right.
And Archer's like, no, well, you know, we have plenty to keep ourselves busy for a couple of days, because at this point Archer's not going yet.
Right.
But what comes out of this, I actually enjoy a lot. What happens basically from that moment on, I think there's a good story to tell, and I think there's a lot of character growth between T'Pol and Archer in this episode, which make it worth watching.
Mm-hmm.
So, because what you end up having is, you have her come to Archer and say, you know, she tells her the story that there was a group that was 109 people that were put out to infiltrate an enemy. Then when they were supposed to come back, I think it was 19 didn't come back, right? And so some of us were sent out to go get them, and this is the one I couldn't capture.
Right.
And would you come along with me because he's going to be dangerous? And Archer's like, yeah, whatever. Just, you know, he's visibly annoyed even before that, because when she walks in, he goes, if the Vulcan High Command doesn't want me watching this particular water polo match, I'll turn it off. So he's already like giving her flack for it, which I think is great. I think the banter actually is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But then she asked him to go, and he's like, you can go with one of the Vulcans. And she's like, well, I need someone I can trust. So what'd you think about the fact that she feels like she can trust him?
I do like that. I like that a lot, because we've had a year and a bit of them working together, and for her to be able to trust him now, I really do like that, and I think that's a very interesting moment between the two of them. And it kind of changes your perception of T'Pol's relationship with him, and you realize how close they're getting.
Yeah, because this is like the first time, you know, she hated humans to start, right? And he didn't trust Vulcans at all. And this is like the first time we're seeing that break down for both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he still doesn't trust Vulcans.
Right.
And he's mad that he has to go to this planet and wait. And she even says, no, this was an order from Admiral Forrest, not from the Vulcan High Command. But we all really know that it's a order from the Vulcan High Command, right?
Right. But even still, with this part here where she's telling him, oh, and I had to go for 6 of them, and I missed the last one, and I only got 5 of them, and you're like, yeah, but the episode's called The Seventh. Like, you know, so I don't know, like, they should have called it something different, because even right there, when I'm watching it again, not remembering this episode, I'm like, okay, yeah, so what's up with this now? And
so, yeah, maybe I'm just dumb. I didn't catch it the first time watching it. I'm not the best person in the world. I don't really pay attention to titles on first runs, so maybe that's why I didn't catch it. But even like in a second watch, when I didn't remember the episode, and I'm like flipping through, you know, Amazon Prime to see it. I read the 7th, I hit play, I don't remember the episode, and it's not till the end where I go, oh, right. But now we start getting the flashbacks, and we see someone chasing someone.
Yes.
And it doesn't really look like T'Pol chasing someone, though.
Well, because it could have been, I guess I'm not quite sure. I didn't notice that, because there was the 3 people that were running, right? So it could have just been a shot of that other person that she killed.
Well, it is, and I think they want you to believe it's her.
Okay, I guess I didn't catch that. So,
like, the way they filmed it, I think they only showed you Minos, the second guy whose name I can't remember.
Bob.
And that was really it in these first initial scenes. And the way they kind of shot him, a little wonky. Like, I kind of question myself, oh, well, is that supposed to be T'Pol chasing him? Like, I don't... Because remember, at this point, we still think she's only after one person. And she makes that slip up when she's explaining this whole story on the shuttle pod. She makes a slip up where she says, they thought they were safe. I meant him.
Yeah.
So now, at this point, I believe there was more. I thought maybe it was like Minos' wife or family or something along those lines, and that T'Pol did murder them.
See, and while I'm watching this, I'm thinking that she's lying. The way that it's coming off to me is that T'Pol is lying, and there was actually 2 people there, and she's lying to Archer.
Yeah, okay, so we got the lying part together, because I thought she was omitting on purpose.
Yeah.
That he had family there, you know what I mean? But I didn't think it was another conspirator.
Yeah.
I didn't think that yet. I thought it was like his wife, you know, and which later in my head, before the episode ends, gets confirmed. But so now, to backtrack just a little bit, because I jumped a little ahead of myself. At this point, Trip wants to know where they're going, and no one will tell him, or Archer won't tell him.
Yeah, and then he's doing the thing that T'Pol's doing, and I'm just like, oh, man, what is this?
It's terrible the way he does it. And look, if you're not going to tell him, then you just flat out say to him, look, Trip, I'm not telling you. End of story.
Right.
And end it. End the conversation right there. Don't.
I'm the captain. This is the order.
Right. Not this little cutesy back and forth nonsense they're doing. And she comes out and goes, he punched in the coordinates on the shuttlecraft. So you mean to tell me that in that year, that if you punched in coordinates, the main ship couldn't figure out where it was going?
Yeah.
That part drives me crazy. It really does. And again, overall, I really enjoy this episode because of what themes we're going to see moving forward here, but that drove me crazy. Like, oh, look, they're not going to this planet. They're going over there.
Can I let me jump ahead on something here and tell you how I think this episode would have worked better for me.
Sure.
I think this episode would have worked better for me post Xindi arc. Okay, because T'Pol is way too emotional in this episode this early in the series, and I think that this would have played better after her addiction to the rock.
Trillium.
Why can't I remember the name of it?
Trillium D.
The Trillium. I was going to say Trilosane, but that's a book, I think. With the Trillium D. Post-addiction to Trillium D, I think this episode would have played a heck of a lot better for me.
Yeah, possibly. So I thought about that because it doesn't make sense that she's this emotional.
Yeah.
And they try and explain it off. And, again, we're jumping ahead, but this is really the crux of the episode, right? And this is actually one of the themes in the episode I like. I don't know if necessarily they pulled it off the best, but I like it in that she was so emotional. Okay, so for the listeners, if you haven't watched this episode, she murders. She's unsure of if she murders, but she kills the 7th person she was supposed to round up.
Oh, the 7th! Oh, what a shock! Be still, my heart.
So he mockingly said. So that happens, right? So she killed him, and she couldn't come to grips with it when she did it, which is kind of a little weird, right? And then they make up this outdated procedure where they make you forget everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so she went through that, but now, because Minos is kind of, once they find Minos, and he's kind of bringing this memory back to her, she's starting to get really emotional again about it. Because that was another thing. We saw flashbacks of them holding down a Vulcan. And again, I wasn't sure if that was T'Pol on first airing. If she was the Vulcan they were holding down, or if it was the guy who fell that Minos was trying to help, or whatever. And we find out that it is her. She's being held down for this procedure I can't remember the name for because it's outdated and it's never been said again.
Right. Well, I can't remember either.
Yeah, it's something with a P.
Pugalagadaga to Kavaga.
That stuff. So they did that, and she keeps trying to lean on this as a crutch that she went through that, as if that matters, because she's clearly extremely emotional. But what I like about that, and this is a very long way of getting to my point, is that if you take psychology classes, they talk about the beach ball effect. So if you take a beach ball, or go to the pool with a beach ball, and you shove a beach ball down, it doesn't come back up the same way because your hands are above it, holding it down. But it pushes out, to the left of you, the right of you, or in front of you, and pops back up to the surface. And that's kind of what's happening here. She's getting really emotional about things, but they're not what's really making her emotional. It's the fact that she killed this person, and she's unsure if that person was actually reaching for a gun or not.
Right. Now there's a lot to unpack here, okay? So what I got the impression that they were trying to convey here is that it would have worked better for me, rather than her being this distraught because she was unsure about the guy pulling for his gun, would have been more like she was trying to cope with this perceived violation of this removal of the memory. Right? And that with her trying to cope to terms of, did I kill this person? Because I don't remember it, but yet I'm getting these glimpses of remembering killing this person. That would have been a better reason for her to be agitated, rather than, did I kill him because he was reaching for his weapon, or was he not reaching for his weapon and I killed him, So to me, that would have worked better if she's trying to cope with the fact that she was violated by these Vulcan priests or whoever did this mental thing on her.
Right, and they don't even breach that because it was voluntary.
Yeah, so that would have been better. Again, that would have played better for me. Now, there was a recent episode of Literary Treks that Justin Ozer was on, and while we're talking, I'm going to try and pull the number, where they talked about a novel that came out around this time, and the novel's called Surak's Soul. And it's really interesting because in this book, and I just read it, because I follow along with Literary Treks, T'Pol kills somebody in self-defense. Like, the person's attacking Reed, I think it is, or the person's attacking somebody, and Hoshi pulls a weapon to stun the person, and the person dies because they were compromised. and she killed that person unintentionally. And so it really made me think a lot of this book. So maybe I was partially influenced by this on my last watch as well with this novel, Right. But I don't know. It just made me think a lot of this Surex Soul by J.M. Dillard, and it was an okay book. It wasn't great. It wasn't terrible. It was okay. But let me see if I can find, where's my Literary Treks feed? Oh, it's because it's at the top. It was just a couple episodes. It was episode number 237. And it's like a reverse These Are the Voyages is the name of the episode. But it's called Surex Soul, based on the novel. So check out the book, take a listen to the episode. I just was thinking about that a lot. That doesn't really play into my opinion of the episode, I don't think. But it's interesting that this book came out around this time as well. So,
right. Now, see, I like your idea, but my problem with it is, if they had done it that way, it knocks out the fact that everyone, I think the message they were trying to get to is that even a Vulcan has to come to grips with their actions, no matter how much they try and repress them.
Yeah, and that just didn't work for me.
Yeah, it fell flat for a lot of people. I happen to like the message. I mean, maybe not the execution, but the message. And, one of the things, too, with this is, through this episode, Minos is coming off as a really sympathetic character.
Right.
And I wanted him, but I wanted him to be good.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. And I'm not usually like that. I usually want to see people get shot.
Yes, honestly, I think the episode also would have worked better had he not turned out to be the villain that they were looking for. I think it would have been a much more interesting story and a much more interesting idea to think of had he just had those empty casings on his ship and that was it.
Absolutely, because it more justifies her feelings.
Right. Her
losing her feelings. And I think if I were to write this episode again, I would have had it come to light that he was just a simple, cargo ship moving spent casings, like halfway through the episode, so that all the stuff we saw before that comes after she realizes, well, wait, maybe he really was just trying to run away.
Yeah.
Because that makes more sense than questioning yourself because a criminal is telling you to.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like, this episode just doesn't work for me. Like, I get what they're trying to do, but it's no doubt. There's no doubt in my mind as to why this episode just slips from my mind. It's not very good.
Yeah, fair. Like I said, I enjoyed it. I like that the way they made him so sympathetic was to when he asked for someone to he asked for Mayweather to go into his pocket and pull out the little hologram of his family. You see the little kids waving. Like, you don't see great detail. They're 2 inches tall on the table, but you can tell they're like waving and stuff like that. I think they did a good job of that. I think they did a great job of making this guy sympathetic. I think they did a good job of how a person would react to finding out that their memory of things weren't exactly what they were.
Mm-hmm.
But is it really good for a Vulcan to react that way is the problem.
Right. And see, the thing is, watching the episode, I know, even forgetting the episode, I know that he's not a sympathetic guy, and I know that he's lying because of how he reacts as soon as he sees T'Pol. And in my way, yes, I understand that she tried to kill him at one time before, but the way that he's so good at hiding and all this stuff that we know about him, feeds into the story that he is wrong and he is the bad guy.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So when he's playing sympathetic, it's not striking a chord with me because I know that he's not. Because that's the episode that they're telling us that he's not.
Yeah, no, it's unfortunate. I wanted him to be. I wanted it to come down to the end and it'd be like, oh look, he really was telling the truth, even though he seemed like such a good liar. And that was because of the training he got. So he always seems like a liar to you, or because we don't like Vulcans at the moment, whatever. But it was obvious, like you said, that he was definitely the bad guy. And at the very end, they find the biotoxin.
Yes.
So it confirms that, no, he was bad. The other guy reached for his gun. This all sucked and was worthless. But I do, like I said, I keep going back to it because I do like the message they were giving with her, with the fact that you can hide from your past, but only so much.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually it comes back to bite you. And this is it coming back to bite her. I don't necessarily know if they did it in the right way. There's other ways they could have done it, but I don't think it would have had as much impact if she doesn't have the emotion. So maybe you're right, and this episode should have just been slotted for season 4.
Yeah, but they wouldn't have known what they were doing with season 3, and so it came out now, and it just, I don't know, it just doesn't work here for me.
Yeah, and like you said, at the end of this episode, we have another great moment where she comes to him and says, you can always trust me, and he says, I'll never forget it. So we have that. It's unfortunate that in what most consider such a bad episode, we have these two groundbreaking moments between T'Pol and Archer. But like you said, that's really the only thing that's memorable about the whole episode, because even the message they were telling in the middle, which I enjoy, we could throw that episode away. It doesn't matter. Nothing changes if we don't watch that episode.
Right. Now, I will point out one thing here, that there is one thing in this episode that I remember, and I never remember that it's from this episode because this episode's so forgettable, and that's the little B plot with Trip being the captain, and that thing that he has to do with the Vulcan and lie that he's Captain Archer, and that I think it's a great payoff that he just gives him the score to the water polo game.
So I forgot that was what the message was, and I was sitting in my room watching the show. My wife happened to walk in, and I just busted out laughing. And she's like, why is that so funny? I go, because he was so afraid this was like important information.
Yes.
And the Vulcan doesn't even know what he's saying.
I'll be sure to tell him.
Right.
It's
confidential. It's classified.
It's classified.
So and that was great. I mean, it was short-lived, a short little B plot, but it was great. Yes. I do, and I said this when we did Mayweather's episode, because we talked about this episode, because Mayweather has some good scenes in here. Brandy and I both picked one, actually, as a moment for him out of this episode, which is interesting, because he says like 6 words in the whole episode, but I picked when he basically tackles Minos, and she picked when he figures out that comm had condensation on it. So look, he's a minor character for the most part compared to a Trip and an Archer, so you got to find what you can find, and those look good. But what I did like, and I mentioned it during that episode as well, was Trip just can't make a decision. Everything's, I'll tell you later, I'll get back to you, and nobody wants to hear that. And Reed, being Reed, is a jerk. He's like, well, is that the engineer talking or the captain? I kind of like the scene.
Yes. Yeah, see, that's the funny thing about, doing, if I were to pick character moments, like, I wouldn't even think of that because, I can't just do a rewatch when I'm just picking a couple character moments, right? And I would never have remembered either of those plots, so I'm, like, floored that you guys remembered this.
I cheated. If you go on Memory Alpha, you get all his moments through the whole series. So I just read through it and went, oh, I did like when he did that, And then went back and watched just the moments.
I need to pick the top 5 from Season 2. Oh, there is only 5 from Season 2.
Yeah, well, and like 2 of them are in this episode. But no, I mean, yeah, it's bad. But so overall, I did enjoy what they tried to tell us in this episode. I don't think it's the worst Star Trek episode I've ever seen.
I would watch this over Judgment.
Yeah, I would definitely watch this over Extinction.
I would watch this over Stormfront Part 1 and 2.
Fair. So, but like you said, it's not impactful either.
Yes.
Because you know what it is? Here's the other thing about it.
See, but those episodes are memorable. Like, as much as I don't like Judgment, I remember that episode, and I know it. This one I just never remember. Like, 2 weeks from now, I'm just gonna. You'll be like, what do you think about the 7th? I'll be like, what's that? Oh, that's the one with the Klingons and the 7th. No, wait, no, it's not. That's Marauders.
No, that's
that's the one with the Vulcan one. Well, wait, no, it's not. That's So I don't know.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, Extinction's memorable because it's so bad, though. Like, it's not memorable for the right reasons, but it's just it would have been better if they had some kind of callback to this for T'Pol later in the series too. They don't make us think about it again. Not until she's addicted to Trellium, and then we forget this happened anyway.
Yeah.
Because it's the Trellium's fault, right?
Yeah.
I guess the only memorable spot is that her and Archer are starting to, respect one another more.
Right. And then we get the awesome B plot with Trip.
Yeah, which is great. And we have Travis being Travis, just staring at stuff a lot.
He likes to stare.
He does. He intently stares at a lot of things. Like I said, 2 moments came out of this for that episode, and he says like 6 words.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of staring, and that's kind of just his job. And he does it well here. So, Brandon, do you have any final thoughts on this episode?
No, I don't think I have much more to add. Like I said, I think we've come up with a couple of great ideas on how maybe 1 or 2 more rewrites on this episode could have made it a more impactful, more powerful episode. Like I said, I think this would have played better had, rather than her struggling with, did I kill this guy in self-defense or did I just kill this guy? It would have been an episode more about, a violation of her. And maybe that's a trope. I don't know. I mean, like, how many mental violation episodes did we have with Troy? So maybe I'm wrong, but, maybe it's a better episode dealing with the ramifications of that, and maybe I'm just a victim of, what I know about Star Trek. I don't know. So this didn't quite work for me this way, and I find it to be an extremely forgettable episode.
So my final thoughts, I don't really have many either. It did work enough for me. It's not an extremely memorable episode. If you said the 7th, I would know what you're talking about, but
yeah, the one with the
detail.
Magnificent 7 one, right?
Yeah, that. And no, but I know the episode. I wouldn't know it in great detail. I did like this story with T'Pol, but I think you're right that, and I don't necessarily think I would want it to be that she's struggling with them taking the memory. I think I'm okay with that. I think the placement is all wrong. I think you're right that it should have been after, that if it was after her addiction, then it makes more sense. Yeah,
I wonder if this episode would have played completely different for me had this been a season 4 episode. I mean, like, I'm glad it's not, because we had such great stuff in season 4, but had they done this story in season 4, or even near the end of season 3, and somehow they found Minos in The Expanse, I don't know. Maybe it would have played better.
Look, we could easily have gotten rid of Extinction and been able to fit this episode in 3, and just move some stuff around, and it would have definitely played better, I think, because now she's supposed to be emotional.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And they could even use the excuse of the Trellium for the resurfacing of the. You don't even need Minos in this. You could just have her remembering this, because the Trellium is bringing it out. For all we know, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So,
right. Bringing up memories, bringing up her troubled past. She's starting to regret things.
Right. That it could have been done so much better. And even though I like the themes of the episode, it wasn't done to the best of its ability, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. And, that's really all I have to say about the episode. Mm-hmm. It is kind of amazing that we were able to find a couple of moments out of there for one of the characters, but that's about it.
Well, it's been fun talking with the 7th today, but this isn't the only thing we've been discussing on the network. So here's a quick look at some of the other things you may have missed elsewhere on Trek FM.
Previously on Trek.fm, Literary Treks.
Not to sound, too high on oneself, but I was special when we were the only ship in the Delta Quadrant, and now we're just back, and it's not as great as you think. It almost feeds into that Voyager theme of it's not the destination that matters, it's the journey, because, once you get there, it's not as amazing as you think it was going to be.
This reminds me so much of the rescue of Gilligan's Island.
I love it.
Standard Orbit.
Anson Mount, our new Captain Pike, was wandering around in the vendor's room, and I saw him. He passed by me within inches and was walking around and looking at different booths and stuff. I went up to his handler and I said, I have these bookmarks. I made these bookmarks. Would it be okay if I gave him one? I don't want to bother him. I don't want to interrupt him. And she's like, yeah. And at that point, he had turned around and I got to shake his hand. I gave him a bookmark. He is incredibly nice.
Warp 5.
He seems upset that she doesn't want to go to the movie. Now let's get back to the episode here.
But he's always upset when she doesn't want to go, because he wants date night with her.
He does. And then Archer just swoops in and is like, "You're my date." And she's like, "What?"
Yeah. You're coming with me. We're going to the movies.
God, that look on her face. She's like, no.
So check out all these shows and join the conversation about your favorite corner of the Star Trek universe and beyond. You'll find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you're an Apple user, please be sure to hit the subscribe button in Apple Podcasts on iPhone, iPad, or Apple TV, or the desktop iTunes app to get the latest episodes as soon as they are published. And please leave us a star rating and written review. And please don't forget to properly dispose of your spent casings. If you're not an Apple user, we've got you covered as well. You can find our shows on Google Play Music, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Windows Phone, in most third-party apps, and you can stream and download the MP3 file from our website or grab the RSS link as well.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's show, and there are many ways for you to do that. The best place to join the larger conversation is the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type Babel, B-A-B-E-L, into the search field on Facebook, and it should come right up. If you'd like to email us, you can use the form on our website at trek.fm/contact. Choose to send a show and select Warp 5. That will come right to us. You can also find the network on Twitter at TrekFM and on Facebook at facebook.com/TrekFM. So, Brandon, when you're not growing old because you're shuttling around spent casings, where can people find you?
Oh, you can find me on Twitter at Brandon-Mutala. You can find me here on the network with Melodic Treks, which is a podcast all about the music of Star Trek. I'm doing an intermittent podcast over on Cinematic Sound Radio. I've had one episode come out so far. That podcast is called Breaking the Waves, and it's all about film score music that's electronic. Our first episode was all about the Academy Award-winning duo of Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. So check it out. It's a fun little show. You can find me on the Talk Film Society with my friend Zach Moore from Standard Orbit, where we're doing Halloween H4O, an 11-part miniseries covering all the Halloween films. We're having a heck of a lot of fun over there. And as of this recording, as of you guys listening right now, there should only be 3 episodes out, and 2 of them feature John Mills, formerly of Stage 9. So be sure to check him out. Episode 3 on Halloween 3 is a really, really great discussion. So that's a lot of fun. Definitely check it out. You can also find me on the Fandom Podcast Network with my friends Chris and Tom, and we talk about Alfred Hitchcock films on Good Evening, an Alfred Hitchcock podcast. And Patrick, where can people find you when you're not killing people accidentally, when you think they're pulling weapons on you, but they're actually not?
Oh, man. Usually then I'm dealing with that harshly, many years down the line. But in the meantime, you can find me on the Babel Conference. I pop my head up in there once in a while. I've been doing that a little more than recently. So you can also find me on Twitter at MagicDrop5. It's one word. The 5 is a number. And you can find me over at The Edge with my my buddy Amy, where we talk Star Trek Discovery.
You talk a big game over there.
We do talk a big game.
If you'd like to help us keep all of our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/TrekFM. That's patreon.com/TrekFM to get all the details. Perks include early access to episodes, exclusive content, producer credits, and more, including ancient Vulcan mind wipes. Available through our special patrons website, Patron Zone. It requires a great deal of money to produce, host, and distribute these shows each month. We really appreciate any support you can give us and hope you'll join the team. Again, you'll find all the details at patreon.com/TrekFM. And at this time, we'd like to thank our wonderful associate producers, whom we could not produce this show without, because they support us as well as the network. Thank you so much to Norman C. Lau, Floyd Dorsey, Mike Morrison, Tim Cooper, Justin Ozer, Mark Flessa, and the 7th, Chris Tribuzio. He's a dead man.
Poor guy, he got shot when he wasn't looking. So that's all we got for you this week. So boomers, keep calm and boom on.